What stupid thing did you do when your brain was on autopilot? Sorry for bad English. I once cleaned an eye with nail polish remover instead of eye makeup remover. Both bottles were pink. Cleaned my eye with water. Phoned the Center of the Toxicology. They said that if it wasn't long on my eye and I cleaned it off, it wasn't so harmful. Sighed a sigh of relief because nothing bad had happened. Cleaned the other eye now quite thorough because now it was eye makeup remover only to recognize the scent of nail polish remover and again feel a sting in my eye. Still don't know where my brain was that day. This wasn't me but my husband. Still so good I have to share. I saw my husband with the pill in one hand and glass of water in the other. He then proceeded to throw water in his face instead of putting a pill in his mouth, and then said his already famous, "Physical reality is very uncomfortable." I am working as a police officer and one day was standing in our entrance hall waiting for my colleague. Our head chief, biggest boss in our police station, was walking by and greeting me. A few hours later I was again standing and waiting for my colleague in the same area and again the chief was walking by. He stops and says, "Oh my mojo, you are again standing here," and I reply in autopilot, "Yes, I like standing around." He just blinks a few times and then leaves. My colleague heard what I was saying and as soon as the chief was out of earshot he was cracking up. I didn't realize what I had said until another colleague comes by, was told the story and was also cracking up. We had a good laugh about it. No promotion for me, I guess. I stood at the glass door into my workplace for a solid 5 minutes trying to scan my credit card into the card scanner. Instead of my work pass, I ended up getting someone to let me in, then tried it again at the entrance to my office before I realized what I was doing. I am terrible at going autopilot at work on the phone. Just the other day, I had made about 4 phone calls in a row that resulted in me having to leave a voicemail. Cue call number 5. She picks up, says hello, confirms her name and date of birth, calls healthcare, and I promptly launch into my standard voicemail message. She quietly asked, "Are you a robot?" Sadly not the stupidest thing I have done on a phone, lol. Was traveling by plane with my kids to move our dog to my mom's house. Husband working overseas and on way to move there too but dog couldn't go. Early morning flight and had to get dog situated, get all that handled and my boys come with me as I had to return the rental car keys. They were closed but had a sign to leave them in the lockbox on the counter. Mindlessly I slipped in my phone and walked off with my keys. Here a few steps later Mom and my boys were at the counter pointing to the lockbox. Maybe more stress-induced than autopilot, but this was a day that became filled with a bunch of comedy errors. Well, I tried to get my arm into the lockbox to retrieve my phone when a police officer stops by wondering what the heck I'm doing. I offered to drive my friends to the local theme park in my van so we could all just go in one vehicle and just totally went on autopilot and drove us all to my place of work. We left my house at the same time I usually leave during the work week, and I just let my strict schedule take over. I honestly didn't realize when I did until I pulled into my parking space and then it startled me enough that I just reversed and drove back out to the highway again. During the last part of my residency, I had been at the hospital for 17 hours. Thankfully I lived in an apartment building right across the street. I got home around midnight after a day with no breaks and no food. I grabbed some cereal from my upper kitchen cabinets, poured on some milk, and went to sleep right afterwards. I woke up in the morning and went to the kitchen to grab a granola bar before going back to the hospital, and saw my counter and floor were covered some in white sticky substance. I opened the cupboard, and found the source. I had put the milk away but put it in the cupboard instead of the fridge and the entire contents leaked out overnight. I then opened the fridge, and found the box of cereal. Residency was not a healthy time. It was winter, and having arrived home from a heavy day at work at about 6 p.m. I went straight to bed for a nap, woke up about an hour later, saw 7:20 on the clock, panicked thinking I was going to be late for work, hurriedly got dressed and drove to work, was confused why it was all locked up when I got there, then looked at my watch which told me it was p.m., not a.m., drove home in shame. I was 7, it was the first time my friend came to spend the night. After I woke up, I was still half asleep, but needed to pee. Here was my thought process: I can't use the bathroom or else the flush will wake up my friend, and I can't go outside either because I'll wake up Mom. Here's an idea: pee right next to the fabric couch where Mom is sleeping. Guess what? Mom woke up and witnessed this before her own eyes. Oh yeah, I also fell back asleep while standing and peeing. It was embarrassing to say the least, and the mess was cleaned up before my friend was awake. When I was like 11 or 12, my mom was away for a few weeks, and as my dad refuses to learn how to use the fucking washing machine, she showed me beforehand and laundry was my task. Problem is, apparently I forgot the detergent in this first load, memorized how I did the first load, and proceeded to do laundry for like a month without detergent. Only knew it afterwards when my mom wondered that the detergent was still as full as before she went away. Also the occasional I only use this spoon to taste once, I'll use it to eat, proceeds to toss the spoon in the sink with the pot and soak it 2 minutes later. I am a real estate agent and I got a call and my brain went on autopilot and I answered as if I were my own secretary. When I answered I said, "Thank you for calling Armored Bananas this is." During this period I realized I just said my own name and didn't know what to say, so in the split second after I had just said my name I continued ... Armored Bananas, how can I help you? I once spent 30 minutes looking around the house for my sunglasses. I could swear I had just put them down somewhere, just a second ago. Where was that? Finally, I gave up, and grabbed a backup pair of sunglasses. As I tried to slip them onto my face, I found the original pair. I was wearing them. Somehow I had searched the entire house, and never noticed the darkness. I believe I was preparing spaghetti, and just before I added the sauce, my brother needed to use the kitchen, so I carried my bowl of pasta to the corner, opened the freezer, added ice to the bowl, and poured some soda in it. Evidently, I used that corner of the kitchen to pour soda a lot. Waiting for a friend to pick me up downtown, finishing off a cigarette when he calls me. There's no parking nearby, so be ready to jump in. Now, what I should have done was flick the cherry off the cig, pinched the end, thrown it in the garbage, and put my phone in my pocket. Instead I knocked the cherry off, saw his car, pinched my phone and threw it in the garbage, and tried to put my still smoldering cigarette into my pocket, burnt my hand, had to dig my phone out of a garbage can on a hot summer day, and my body still hasn't let me live it down. On a job interview, I was offered water and proceeded to pour myself a glass while continuing the conversation. My brain never got to stop its full alert, so I continued pouring a big stream of water into the already full to the brim glass, which spilled all over the table and of the edges of the table. By the time I realized everything on the table was soaked, I got the job. I've had too many of these in my life, so here are the top 3. Got into the shower with my sack still on. I honestly don't know why I was so distracted, but the moment my feet felt too warm, I knew something was up. Was talking on my phone to my boyfriend at the time. I freaked out thinking I left my phone in the restaurant I was coming out of. My boyfriend kept saying, "Ed, Rivlet, where could your phone be? Maybe you should retrace your steps," until I finally realized I was obviously using it to talk to him. My aunt was present for it, watched the whole thing, and still won't let me live it down. 3. getting into the shower with my glasses on. It's happened at least twice. Nothing like remembering you don't naturally have 20/20 vision when it suddenly fills with steam, fog. I was at the point where I had fallen deeply in love with my current girlfriend. Still remember the exact moment. I'm a softie, and we can just gotten back to my place after an amazing date together. One thing led to another, and afterwards we were chatting and I just dropped those 3 special words without even so much as a thought. Boy, I could have lit a fire off my forehead. Still together, so I think things worked out for the best. One time I stopped by the convenience store on the way home and bought a bottle of water and a bottle of body washington. I put them next to my bed and fell asleep, woke up thirsty in the middle of the night, and grabbed the wrong bottle in the dark. Friends, let me tell you, a mouthful of soap is better at waking you up than all the caffeine in the world. I'm a lawyer in the city, and I booked a hair appointment at a hip salon that I hadn't been to before. I went straight after work, and when my hairdresser came up to me I went to shake his hand. He just looked at me, and I pretended to be doing something else with my hand. My cheeks were red in the mirror the whole appointment. Apparently handshakes are not cool in the trendy salon world, lol. Called out the family dog at my parents' place while visiting them years after I left the house. The dog died when I was still living there. Put my dirty laundry in the fridge, dipped my paintbrush in my tea, called my drugstore to order my meds. By the time they answered I presented myself and started doing my usual customer service call as if they were my client. Halfway through my usual script I realized it was a personal call. That was awkward. I got off a 12-hour shift at the nursing home kitchen and drove through town back to my apartment. I reached the little 2-lane road that went under the underpass. I could turn left, or I could go straight. The light turned red as I pulled up. My half-asleep brain forgot left from right and went right turn on red, resulting in me turning left. Thankfully the roads were abandoned and I didn't get in an accident, but I made a point to have my husband pick me up and drop me off to avoid me driving drowsy after that. If I'm driving somewhere I don't normally go and it uses a familiar route, I sometimes end up somewhere else. That is if the normal destination would be my job site. I might end up at work instead of, say, my dentist. One time, very early morning, I was going on a trip and I suddenly found myself multiple exits north on the turnpike when I meant to be going south. Having my GPS on, even if I know where I'm going, has mostly put an end to that. I can probably answer this for a friend. I was visiting their house. Some aunt he loves and didn't get to see often was visiting, so he asked her if he could make a sandwich for her. She said sure. So, I was in the kitchen with him and the TV was on. He made the sandwich, but we both somehow got distracted by the TV. He sat there and started eating the sandwich while we watched whatever show it was. He got about halfway through the sandwich before he realized what he was doing and he shouted, "Oh my God, I'm eating her sandwich." So he made another one, brought it to her and told her he started eating the sandwich, so he had to make another one. I don't know why, but it's just really funny to me. One time I poured a glass of milk and for some reason tried to put the jug away in the cupboard. I have no idea why there. The signals in my brain must have gotten really mixed up, lol. In my 20s I had to train myself to jump out of bed as soon as I woke up, otherwise I just smashed the snooze button all morning. I was dressed and ready to head out the door on more than one occasion before I realized that for some reason I had woken up at 3 a.m. or something. Thankfully it was an easy habit to break. I think I either dreamed my alarm went off or I just thought it did, but one time I got up and dressed for school, had breakfast etc. and went to leave the house. Wasn't until I realized it was pitch black outside I thought something wasn't right. My mom then came down the stairs equally confused and spent the next half hour laughing at me. It was 2 a.m. I'm a night owl and will occasionally stay at the office till the cleaning crew comes around 10. Things I've done in front of them include trying to put a blazer on with the hanger still in it, and standing in front of the elevator pressing my car key fob until a nice lady hit the button for me. I set up a Binomatic coffee machine, hit the trigger switch and walked away. One little problem: I left the coffee pot in the sink. This was in a workplace kitchenette. About 2 minutes later, I realized what I had done and rushed back. An irate woman was mopping up coffee and sputtering about idiots. Yes, I fessed up as the idiot and took over the entire clean up. The lady was still pissed and I was not forgiven. Brother and I were getting inside the car from shopping and he handed me a bottle of Dr. Pepper. He told me not to open it because it got shaken up on the way to the car. I was looking right at him when he said it and I heard every word he said, but for whatever reason it just didn't process in my brain. I immediately opened it and it projectiles spewed everywhere. Sometimes in life I'll hear something happening that I'm interested in but I didn't quite catch it when it happened, so I'll instinctively reach around for the remote so I can rewind the thing my friend just said and listen to it again. Yes, I'm trying to rewind reality. It hasn't worked yet, but my friend laughed so hard when I told her what I was reaching around for that she did a literal spit take and some of it came out of her nose. I once got home from work really tired and took a nap, woke up, checked my phone, saw that it was 8:30, and panicked, thinking I was late for work. I was frantically getting my shoes on, trying to figure out how to properly apologize to my boss for being so late. I was supposed to be at work at 6:30, resigning myself to the fate of not having time to eat breakfast or pack lunch, etc., when I realized that it was 8:30 p.m., not 8:30 a.m., and that I didn't have work until that morning. Biggest relief ever. My dad told me a story about my uncle once. My uncle, worked in the warehouse of a factory and had to start at 6 in the morning or something like that. One day he woke up at 2, got dressed, had breakfast, got in his car and left for the factory. When he got there, everything was dark and closed. It was only then that he noticed he was a couple of hours too early, so he went back home to sleep some more. Then he overslept. I have been known to do strange things when startled awake. My family has always been a bunch of early birds and wake up before the butt crack of dawn. One time my stepsister, who I shared a room with, came home from work or whatever she was doing that night at around 2:45 a.m. and having been startled awake I panicked thinking I had slept through my alarm and she was now getting ready for work the day. So me in my delirious haze freaked out and drove all but a stop sign away to my early morning seminary class at around 3 a.m. I then looked at the clock in the car after realizing there were a lot fewer cars on the road than normal and noticed the time and turned my happy butt back around home. I even tried to tell my mom in like a haha what a dingbat I am sort of way and was essentially reprimanded because she really didn't like the sound of that. Like girl, if I was out and about doing something sketchy at 3 in the morning and hadn't gotten caught, what makes you think I would be telling you about it if it wasn't innocent? SMH. I have lived in my current house for more than a decade. Not that long ago I almost made it the additional 4 miles, 10 minutes, through heavy construction traffic to where I used to live. So, what I am really saying is this may not be over. I have a friend that uses GPS on the way home because it happened too much to him. I opened the fridge for the half and half and instead poured Diet Sprite in my coffee. I did try it. I like coffee and I like Sprite and I hate to waste. Worst thing I have ever put in my mouth. I could not swallow it. Spit it back into the cup. My son was watching the whole thing, laughed when I poured Sprite in my coffee, was the one to suggest I try it, laughed harder while I was rinsing my mouth and scrubbing my tongue in the kitchen sink, all this before I'd had my coffee. been 3 years for me and I'm still at the once-a-week phase. I used to talk to her every day, even when I lived on the other side of the world. She's still on my favorite contacts list. I cannot bring myself to delete her info out of my phone. I fully expect to be thinking I need to call my mom in a decade.